Welcome back to another exciting episode of Life in Cyber. I'm your host, Josh, and today I'm joined by Kenny, Shannon, and John. In today's episode, we're going to cover new eye gear from Apple. Life, we have some continuous learning and professional development. And for cyber, we have some social engineering. Should have been, but no one calls me this late unless it's like my mom.
Hello, dear. How are you? Hello.
All right, tech news, Mr. Shannon, Mr. iPhone guy.
Oh, if y'all didn't know, the new iPhone came out. Have you heard about it?
What's an iPhone?
You know, it's that phone. You want to know what hardware changes they made?
Yeah.
I can't really tell you because it's pretty much all the same as the 14.
And that's the news.
Pretty much. Camera is still 48 megapixels. The processor's a little bit newer, and they upped the storage. Every new feature that they've came out with is through the operating system. You can now tap phones together to send contacts back and forth, exchange contacts. That's been an Android feature for a while. You can leave a video voicemail. That's also been in Android for a while. They have a thing called stickers, which I think has been an Android thing for a while.
I think those came from Facebook.
Yeah. But
sorry,
I
Meta.
bought one.
And why did you buy one, Shannon? With all those great features.
The new feature is USB-C.
Wow.
Are they going to give you a new power brick with it, though? No, you have to buy it. It's extra. Are they going to give you a cable? I don't think so. I think you have to buy that, too. But it's really kind of ingenious because a lot of sheep are going to buy them. Like me. I just bought one. It's coming. I'm excited about it. The wife is excited about it. It's our Christmas gifts to each other.
Bro, it's September.
We plan ahead.
It's one of the many Christmas gifts to each other.
Yeah. I still got to get a charger and a cable. Stop spoiling my stocking stuffers. You fuck.
You can share chargers with all your Android friends who've been there for years.
Actually, that can cause damage, is what the reports are saying. They said be careful about the cables you share. Apparently, different cables can cause STDs to the iPhone, so you got to be careful.
But at least it's all standardized on USB-C.
It is.
We're the same as everybody else now.
Thank you, UK. And you really stepped up and took one for us.
I'm like, thank you, EU. Yep,
It's the EU. The UK is not in the EU anymore.
Fuck. Where have I been? When did that happen?
It is a parliament. It is a parliament, but it's a European parliament. So
yeah. Was that the whole Brexit thing a couple of years ago?
That's exactly what that was, and it was more than a couple of years, yeah.
It was during the pandemic, though, wasn't it?
I think it started before, actually.
Might have been pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know. I don't pay attention to the friends across the pond that much, just enough to only know what impacts, this guy.
Yeah, the EU was saying that they were looking for a common denominator, right? Trying to say multiple chargers are piling up and you have to get a new charger with every device. But according to what I'm hearing is I still need a new device. I still need a new charger.
I'm more worried about the batteries than the chargers as far as e-waste goes.
It's standardized. They just no longer bundle it now. Like, you could probably get a special with T-Mobile or Dish or whoever. Buy your iPhone and we'll throw in a charger for free. Or you can buy them separate for more expensive.
Yeah, it looks like they were just charging them, what, $29.99 for a charging brick? Like,
yep.
Okay.
And what's interesting is I think Apple is pushing wireless charging a lot more than the cables anyway. So the cables is more about legislation. I think they would get rid of the port if they were allowed to.
I think there's other problems there too, because there's other things that you may want to pull off of that that's going to need Oh,
Picture
lost my track
transfers,
there.
file
Yeah,
transfers.
like I would say more video transfer. Like we see all those commercials where people are like, "Hey, you can record a movie on the iPhone." I was like, "You're probably going to need a fast transfer for that. I don't think you'll be
Yeah.
able to do that over wireless."
I know a lot of people that like stream, live on their phone. There's, it's pretty common. So, yeah, no,
I'm
you're
doing
right.
it right
Cable is
now.
still important. Yeah, it looks like it.
Nah, it's this wide angle lens camera that I got right here.
Did you buy it in 2012?
No. God.
Are all the iPhones titanium now, or are they not?
They're all titanium.
Ooh.
Did you guys see that Futurama episode where Bender's name was Titanium Inglesmith?
And then he sold his body. Yes.
See if
Well,
I can
that's an old episode there.
It is.
I think what's interesting the only thing that I found interesting was that episode about the zero carbon, for Apple, and I thought their marketing on that was quite nice, quite ingenious. But I don't know if that's enough for me to be like, okay, I need to go buy myself an iPhone now.
I think that's honestly like Apple's greatest strength is marketing. Like I've seen them fumble a couple times, but most of the time, like they're god tier when it comes to marketing, and that's really why they've kind of cemented themselves as this social norm, right? Like I know of people who are like on dating websites where literally if they don't have an iPhone, they get blocked. You have to have an iPhone in order to like, be accepted in some social circles. It's very strange, like status thing. And I think it has everything to do with the marketing.
I think it's kind of weird though too, because if you're on a dating site and you have to be on an iPhone, why is that? Do you need to see the read receipts and be like, "You're not answering me, weirdo"?
I don't know if it's read receipts, but there's like a certain level of judgment that you get from not having a blue bubble.
Yeah, there is. There definitely
It might
is.
be a money thing too. I don't know. I think it's all silly. I've just read about it.
Yeah, that's Apple for you.
I do want to ask though, like, thing.
What does Apple's R&D work on, right? So like, and I wanted to ask this question just because, to your point, Shannon, like you kind of nailed this through comedy, but what are they doing that's special? Like Apple used to be innovators and they used to lead the pack. They literally created the smartphone and the tablet before everyone else. And that was all under Steve Jobs. Tim Cook is doing okay at like keeping the image okay, but I haven't seen anything like great coming from Apple since Tim Cook took over. And I've heard rumors that Apple's developing a car. Where is it? I've heard rumors that Apple's developing all these fancy new tech, and all I see is like, we added a third camera to the phone.
They do have the AR headset. That's probably their most recent thing. And from what I hear, the car has to be flipped over to be charged, and they're working on fixing that solution right now.
You were forgetting about the greatest piece of technology that they came out with, and I'm going to send it to you right now, since you obviously have your head stuck in the sand. There you go. Check it out. Give you a little bit.
For everyone that's listening, he sent us a link to the Apple Pencil. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Apple Pencil.
And I think you sent me a link to the Gen 1 Apple Pencil.
Probably. It's what I came out with mainly to mock it, because I really don't understand why we needed an Apple branded pencil to begin with.
Because it's $100, Shannon.
Like that looks like something I actually might buy.
I actually like some of the pencils. Like, to be fair, like the one that I like the most is actually not Apple, it's Microsoft's. The one that they send out with the Surface, that thing feels great. Oh, we lost Josh. Oh, he's back. But I like the ones that have like that tactile presence. Yeah, that. Like when it actually feels like you're writing on paper, it's so satisfying.
No.
That's the one that I was going to buy. The Remarkable.
You need the Remarkable. The Remarkable 2 is the best. And it costs just a little bit more than the Apple Pencil for the whole time.
I really do hang out with pompous assholes who buy the dumbest shit.
You have a stack of laptops and tablets in your couch. What the hell?
We're function over fashion, Shannon.
Get your judgy shit out of here.
No.
Such an iPhone user, judging everyone because they have non-iPhone products or non-Apple products. Ugh.
No, but seriously, if you think about it, it is a prestigious thing. Like, how many of your CIOs or your CX staff have an Android?
Do I count?
Are
Do
you
you
in
have
the C-suite?
C in your job title?
I do.
Then yeah, you
Not
count.
your last name, you fuck.
Oh, let me find the business card now. But no, I also know of many ethical hackers, many developers who I highly respect that have Android phones. It's not. I think they just like the ability to do whatever they want whenever they want, rather than, especially developers. They love being able to tinker. But
And
I don't know.
to
The
counter
only
Kenny's argument about them innovating, what other mobile company has innovated recently? The only thing I can think of is the flip phones that were going backwards in to get a larger screen.
Samsung flex screens.
Yeah,
That's
those
probably
flex
the-
screens and the hinges.
Mhm.
but
That's actually a really valid point. Like the mobile market's been fairly stagnant for quite some time, and I think we were talking about this a little bit before the stream, but we're kind of starting to see that the mobile market is shifting more into a software thing. And I would argue that we're starting to see that across every industry, right? And I would even add this to, like, for example, I recently was at the Trimble Technology Lab conference in Miami, and I was talking about how I believe that Trimble is moving to be more of a software company than a hardware company. They currently provide a lot of surveying hardware, construction equipment, etc. But a lot of their stuff that they've been focusing on is software acquisitions and software management and moving more into that route. And I just keep seeing more and more industries focusing more on software and less on hardware over time. And I'm not entirely sure why. I think hardware is just becoming a lot more uniform and a lot less specialized. I think we're starting to see a lot less like proprietary nonsense, which is probably a good thing. But realistically, software is just cheaper.
and the
It's
need
also
for
easier to innovate in software.
yeah, the need for the excess hardware has went away. Like I remember, I think the Pixel 2, or even further back, I was like, I need better hardware in order to play Angry Birds or whatever the game was at the time. It required better hardware and a newer OS, and I couldn't do it on the phone that I had. We've reached a point now that the processing power is already there. At what point do we just put down our phone and switch over to a computer because that's where we need to be in the first place? I'm not going to take on full computing stuff on my phone.
I
Well, I
mean,
think
many
we're
have
getting to
toyed
that-
with it.
Right. I think we're getting to that point too, that the phones are fast enough they can interchangeably be used. Right. That's why Chromebook became such a popular device. You really, as long as you have a good internet connection, what more do you need?
Yeah, I think we've seen that before. I know Asus at one point tried to do that with an Android phone. They gave you a dock where you could dock in and make it a full laptop. The power wasn't there yet, but they were trying to innovate. I think now, yeah, like you said, the power is there. I think if you look at some of the bench scores for graphics and processing power of, say, the new iPhone and like an older MacBook, they're probably very similar. So we're not too far off, especially Apple isn't.
I do think that there's an issue on that front on the thermal side, and I think Shannon's been talking about this recently privately with us about how his phone overheats, just playing music. And I can say this from like my 4-year-old or whatever iPhone as well. Like it kind of struggles a bit after, under any sort of load thermally. I think any sort of powerful processor, when you don't have, when you're in such a slim form factor and you don't have like air cooling or any sort of cooling outside of like radiator heat, it's kind of an issue. And I don't think you'll ever be able to use it as a solid computing device until they can figure that out. And I don't think they'll ever replace computers for that reason.
And that's valid. I know with my Android phones in the past, I used to get a lot of overheating, but only with like using GPS. My GPS was on, it would just drain the battery and overheat. I don't have that kind of drain anymore. Obviously, Google has worked on that with their maps, but yeah, I agree. We're close, but we're not just quite there.
Good call out though, Shannon. Like what in the market has been innovated on and why are we only pointing at Apple? Very solid question.
All right. I think we can move on. But so continuous learning and professional development. I think we all do this to an extent. The younger we were, we probably did it a lot more. I know certifications were huge back in college, trying to separate ourselves from every other guy in class who was going after the degree. I know I got quite a few. My kids motivated me to do more, but currently I still have subscriptions to things like Pluralsight and a Cloud Guru. That's another one. And I still use them. I actually use them more for CPEs now than actual pursuing any certifications of any type. What kind of stuff are you guys doing to kind of keep yourselves going, and how do you find time to do that?
I think I'm in a similar boat to John in this regard, but not quite the same. I never really stopped. It's one of those where I may have changed how I do it. So, like, I don't always chase credentials, but I do chase learning. And I do what I call like a professional development little book club. It's not anything formal. I don't have actual, consistency behind it, but it's whenever I finish a leadership or a self-help book or whatever it is, I have other folks who have read or are reading similar books, and we talk about it. And we go out to lunch and we just chat about what we liked and what we didn't like, and what we're going to apply, and whether or not it was too pitchy or salesy. I'll say one of my favorite books is The Phoenix Project. It was from a while back. It talks about kind of the birth of DevOps to an extent, but realistically, it just gets you to think about how you bring in work and how you output work and how you manage that. And as someone who often works in a smaller, medium-sized business, and I often have to wear multiple hats, a lot of people come to me with a lot of different things because I'm reliable. I get things done. But in that book, they have a guy named Brett, and everybody goes to Brett, but Brett becomes the problem because he's now the bottleneck. And they always talk about why Brett is actually the problem, even though he's doing his best to help everyone. The whole thing that you do to solve that problem is you remove Brett and you create systems and processes. And I love that book for that, because it tells you, build proper structures. And as a leader, I refer back to that all the time. So I'd say my professional development, my learning has changed away from certifications and more into learning lessons from other people, other authors who have had similar troubles that I've had, and learn from that. And it's helped me a great deal as a leader.
I've kind of taken a different approach, but I think it's because I'm not in management. I block out some time during the day to where I can do my own research on the latest trends in security and the latest vulnerabilities that are out there. But then I also take some time to learn new skill sets for me. After work, I've turned more, instead of to certifications, I've turned more to my health and trying to learn about my own character flaws. And there's a book that I remember reading in college. I believe it was called Leadership and Self-Deception, where it makes you reflect and think about your own insecurities and how you view people and how you put your own thoughts into your head, and basically how you're deceiving yourself. And that is what is making you bad at whatever choice you were making at the time. It helps you identify your own flaws, how you're projecting flaws onto other people, and how you basically just need to remember at heart everybody is human, everyone's going to make mistakes, and not to be too judgy. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I think I'm along the same boat. Is I've kind of gotten a little bit more out of the IT leadership kind of roles, and I'm trying to learn, well, how do I keep up with things while I'm not in the weeds anymore, right? For someone who's always working on the systems on the day in and day out, they get to learn by doing. I don't get to do that anymore. And so I've kind of learned to twist it. I like to call it face your fears. It's one of those, if you are afraid of public speaking or teaching, start becoming a mentor for other people. And that's where I've started twisting my professional career to, is instead of being the guy that's on the front line in the trenches, I now train the guys to be in the trenches safely at home. But at the same time, one of those, like, that's how I get to continue learning, right? And so I get to grow and learn by trying things that I'm just not too comfortable with yet. Public speaking, I still get, really nervous and anxious, and I get up on stage and you can't see anybody because those lights are so blinding. But I've learned that once you're up there and you start getting used to it and you start taking those risks, not only can you find mentors for yourself, but you can be a mentor as well for the people upcoming.
It's funny that you say that, John. Learning by doing, because I, for one, also am pretty shy when it comes to public speaking. And that's actually one of the reasons I've been wanting to create this, is to give myself an opportunity to kind of do it in front of and with guys that I'm more than comfortable talking around, and kind of getting myself out there in that same sense. And then as the podcast grows, people are going to get to know me in a way that is going to be a little weird and awkward at first. I'm sure it is, like for celebrities when they first get, noticed on the street or anything like that. It's gonna be like, oh, you know me? I don't know you. But it's it's one of those things that I've always been wanting to like, all right, I gotta be able to do this, because even as a leader as you guys are as well, I think it's almost a requirement, especially to try to push yourself, to really get yourself out there and allow other people to just have your voice heard, really.
I want to add to that, like, general fear too, right? Like, I always had kind of this desire to help others and desire to like be a coach, so to speak. But one of the things that I really struggled with was like standing up and talking about things that I know about. So like teaching or speaking, etc. And one of the things that I did was actually just volunteer. Like right when I first started working at the university, I started teaching a class literally within a year. And I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never taught a class before. I had like loosely taught like after school programs with random kids who like, back when I worked at the elementary school, it was basically just like after school babysitting essentially. But I used to like teach kids how to like fix Xboxes and stuff. It wasn't anything dramatic. But now that it was actually in a formal accredited class, I suddenly had to know what I was doing. And I'll be honest, like I walked in and I just kind of improv'd it. Like I knew what my material needed to be. I put like 5 bullet points on a sticky note and I just started drawing on a board, and it worked. And so now I always go out of my way whenever I'm invited to like speak at a conference or serve on a panel. I will always say yes. I'll figure it out, and I'll be nervous, the first few minutes before I walk up. But the second I get there and the second I start talking, everything goes blank and things just happen, and it's usually good. And I just kind of lean into that. But it kind of comes into another book that I read recently called Fail Fast and Fail Often. Like one of my biggest fears in life is failure, because I've not been great at failing. I don't lean into like risky situations typically. I tend to just focus on things that I know I can win or know that I'm good at. And so I struggle with that. And so one of the things that I really started doing to help me get over kind of that fear and insecurity is that book of Fail Fast, Fail Often. And so now whenever I have an opportunity to just do something new, I don't think twice. The answer is yes. And I deal with the emotions before it starts. And then I still just go anyway. Like, I mean, even today, I wasn't sure that I wanted to record tonight, but here I am. And it's because one of those things that I've learned as a skill is, even if you're stuck in your own brain, go and do it. You're going to feel better once you start.
I love that book that you actually mentioned. That was one of my favorite books, and I highly recommend it.
It's definitely a life lesson, and it's one that I'm definitely trying to push with my kids now. It's like, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's when you're going to learn the most about yourself.
I think dads are the best at that, right? They like to mess with the kids, and it's mostly because you're just, I'm going to go embarrass them in front of their friends and stuff like that. And honestly, I think it's good for them. It's good for them to be uncomfortable. Now, they may hate you for it up front, but in the long run, the sooner they learn how to deal with that, and the sooner that they figure out how to, try something new and fail for it, kind of like the book said, Kenny, right? You always want to fail forward. I mean, you're going to fail. Learn to fail forward, and get up and do it all over again, because that's how you build success. And so we keep talking about reading, right? We keep talking about this is one things that we do to help improve ourselves. And I think self-improvement books are always best in reading format. I'm an audiobook guy. I don't like to read, but I will love to listen to an audiobook while I'm working out or riding my bike or whatever it may be. But is there anything else that you guys like to do on the day-to-day basis? Like, I've built a routine for myself. Is there a routine that you guys go for to make sure that you hit these strides, that you're also always improving yourselves?
Hold on. Before we go there, how do you work out and listen to an audiobook about self-improvement, John? Like, how are you like pumping iron and like, yeah,
I do the
tell
same
me about
thing.
how to write that speech.
I'm like,
how does that work?
I'm like, you want to see books? There's lots of motivational books out there that are just basically yelling at you. It all depends on the people. Like, my favorite one for working out is, I think it's Lewis Brown. He does a lot of good motivational books. He was actually classified as mentally retarded in school, and it was a false classification that the schools let him behind, right? And he learned how to overcome it, and now he's like one of the richest speakers out there. He goes around and he teaches people in the NFL, NHL, all the sporting events, and anyone who will really listen to him, and how society isn't always set up as a mold for you. There's not always one way to be successful. And so I love listening to this guy because he is so infectious, right? You listen to this guy and you're like, dude, I can go climb that mountain right there. Watch me, right? And it is just one of those things. I'm not saying every audiobook is going to be one of those like oh my God, let me get another rep in, let me get another set in, Rich Dad, Poor Dad or something like that. No, not every book's going to be that way. But there are some that are very moving to get you going to say, okay, get you out of that rut. Like what Kenny was talking about, getting out of the rut of get me out of my own brain. Someone please get behind me and push me. And I think all of us need that, right? Including ourselves here today. Every one of us, I think we're feeling a little off today, right? We're like, man, we're busy with work. We're busy with life. Do we have time to sit down and do this? I love this. I love us getting together and just talking about it. And unfortunately, the only thing I don't like about this is I get so excited after talking with you guys that I can't sleep. I actually get off of this and
Same.
I can't go to bed. I can't go to bed. I have to spend 2 hours calming down before I can go to bed. So
yeah, I'm just giving you shit and I get into the same point, but just real quick before Kenny goes, one book that I did have and I listened to audio in an audio format was Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins.
Oh, Goggins.
Yeah, that was one that I was like, what am I doing at home? Let me go hit the gym now. I'm a lazy piece of shit.
I hate that book. I despise that
Really?
book, but
Loved
it's all right. Go for it, guys.
I know a
Go
lot
for
of
it.
Goggins fans. I'm not one of them, but I appreciate the sentiment. But I will say, I wanted to add to the whole audiobook while working out thing. Like, to me, and I don't even look for motivational ones that pump me up. I'm not looking for my blood pressure to be higher. It doesn't matter. To me, it's just I have a lot of anxiety. And when I go to the gym, that's a very anxious thing for me. Like, it's really hard for me to just walk to the door. I can literally put my gym clothes on, get downstairs, go to the gym, and stand outside the door and not walk in some days. And I just have a lot of anxiety about it. It's that fear of failure. It's knowing that, like, I'm not very good at this and I need to go in and get better. And so to me, it's just like that mental block. And to prevent myself from having that mental block, I just throw the audiobook on before I even walk down as a distraction so that my brain's busy doing something else. Because to me, being in the gym is very mindless. Like, it's not very mentally engaging to me. So like cardio is kind of boring. Lifting weights is pretty simple. Like, there's not much to it. And so I need something to distract my brain so that I don't have freaking anxiety attacks while I'm doing it. So I could focus on like breathing properly, or realistically, so I don't focus on breathing properly and it just happens, right? And those are the types of things like why I like doing audiobooks, or sometimes I'll watch YouTube, but most of the time it's going to be audiobooks because it's just more engaging.
I'm more of a music guy, but I think that's the former athlete in me where it's just something to kind of have a beat to go to.
When I'm doing cardio, absolutely. I think music is definitely wins hands down. But when you're lifting, do you really need music? Probably not. Unless you're one of those pretty girls with makeups on and they're not really there to work out, They're not looking for me, I can tell you that.
I found Grumpy Monkey really inspiring. It's probably the best book that my kids have. Really
Is that a little
you.
kid book?
It is, and it teaches Jim how to not be grumpy, and that some days it's okay to be grumpy.
I love Grumpy Monkey.
Yeah.
I think I've read that to your kids too.
Yeah, it's a great book.
So going back to the routine conversation, I actually wanted to ask Shannon really quick. Like, you said that you actually like have time at work where you specifically focus on, time to read. Like, how do you carve that out? Do you have like a segment? Like, how much time per week? Like, do you block it out on your calendar? Like, what do you do?
I block it out on my calendar every day for like an hour. Is just focus time for me to do whatever I need to do throughout the day. Basically, I use it for research now, but if there's a dumpster fire that I need to gather myself on and collect notes or something to present, I can use that time on. If there's a ticket I couldn't get to the day before, I'll use the focus time to basically just deal with any dumpster fires or research that I want to do. It's not really it's not the best format. Like, I don't have it micro scheduled into certain specific things that I want to look at, but the goal was to use it for education, and then it has kind of turned into a blend of the highest priority that I need to focus on at the time.
I've found for myself that I don't do well with really granular routines. I have to kind of keep them a little loose. It's just a personal thing with my brain. The more specific or the more detailed or the more strict it is, the less likely I am to engage in it. I don't really care for a lot of structure, and I work in the same way. I like things to be fairly unstructured, and then I just get stuff done. I don't like having to like follow a guideline. It really bothers me for some reason, and I'm kind of the same way with my routine. But there is one thing that I do. I commute every day. I ride the bus. I don't own a car, and so whenever I'm on the bus, I'm always reading something. and listening to audiobooks when I'm working out, listening to audiobooks on the commute. But more importantly, I always like to read current events. So I'm always looking at articles and reading up on something new on the way to work and on the way home. So I at least get to read 2 or 3 news things, during that 30-minute window every single day. And that's kind of how I keep up. But then I kind of do it throughout the day. And it kind of depends on if I've got a little bit of free time, like let's say I'm walking in between buildings, between meetings. If I'm not walking with somebody, I'm going to be reading something. It's one of those things where I need some level of engagement all the time. And usually it's conversation with a person, but when there's not a conversation to happen, I'm going to read something. That's just who I am.
I think
Good
I'm
stuff.
completely opposite. I go by a schedule. Without a schedule, I just don't do it. And so I try to take it in bite-sized chunks. Like when I wake up in the morning, I do the same thing every morning. I know you're making fun of this there, Shannon. This is my journal too, right? This is my way that I sit down with a cup of coffee and I just write. What am I writing about? Who knows? Whatever's on mind for the next 15 minutes. It helps me decompress and kind of line up the day a little bit better and knowing what I'm looking for. But one of the things that I always try to tell people is you're not going to climb the mountain in a day. Take little bite-sized chunks. Like let's say you want to learn machine learning, right? You want to learn about the different models and how to build it and stuff like that. Even if your job doesn't entail it today. Well, if you take 15 minutes every day and read just a little bit about it, in a month, you'll start becoming an expert, right? And it really doesn't take long to become an expert if you take little bits every day.
Josh doesn't learn anymore. He just goes home. He thinks about learning.
Oh, I still learn. It gets harder. I don't really commute into work much. My commute, when I do commute, is like 15 minutes. It's like 17 if I stop by the Dunkin' Donuts. So it's really not that long. It's not long enough to really do much. I'm trying to think of books that I've recently listened to, but it's been a while. I've just been kind of jamming, just trying to get, in my own different headspace. That's the one thing about audiobooks. It doesn't allow me to really focus in. I've always been someone where music helps with that. Like sometimes if I know I have to put my head down and get stuff going, I'll just turn music on and just start flying. I work so much quicker with that. If it's an audiobook, I want to listen too much. I want to focus on what they're saying, and then I get distracted. I'm like, crap, never finish that.
I highly recommend Grumpy Monkey and Grumpy Monkey Up All Night and Grumpy Monkey, the Halloween one. It's good stuff.
I
don't
just
do
watched the
books.
trailer on that. It was actually kind of entertaining.
The Halloween one.
So
I
the other
don't
thing I
read.
like to bring up is something that I always recommend is also find that mentor. Now, you're not going to learn everything that you find on YouTube or Googling or reading books. Finding that mentor, sometimes you'll get more knowledge from that in a very short period of time than you will if you try to do it on your own. So if you're looking to get into anything, like for instance, when I was trying to get into marketing way back in the day, I don't have a degree in marketing. Marketing is completely different from everything I went to school for. Everything I've learned with marketing has been learned either on the job or with my mentors. And so as soon as I got into the field, I started making phone calls. I'm like, hey, I read your article here. Could you mentor me? And to be honest, a lot of people like to talk about themselves. A lot of people like to talk about and share what they've learned. And you get the real data from those people, not the stuff that you read off the internet, not the theoretical knowledge, but the actual information that you need to be successful. So if you don't have a mentor, find yourself a mentor.
Especially true for marketing and salespeople. They really love to talk about themselves.
I want to add to this in the sense of I've given people this advice before, find a mentor. And a lot of people come back and they say, how? How am I supposed to find a mentor? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I'll tell you how. I'll tell you how I do it. It's literally just talk. Anytime you get a chance to go to a social event, go to them. Any chance you find someone that you think is even remotely smarter than you on a topic, just ask them if you can talk to them. Ask them for a Zoom session. Ask them for coffee. Take them out to lunch. Anything. And I do this all the time. Whenever I'm working at the university, if I'm in a meeting room and somebody speaks up in a meeting and I think that they're really smart, the first thing I'm going to do is, hey, I really liked what you said. I'd like to pick your brain more. Can we grab coffee? And it's as simple as that. And you can do this with anyone. And it doesn't matter the situation. Even if you don't know who they are, ping them on LinkedIn. I get this all the time where I just randomly get a student message me on LinkedIn hey, we connected once during this presentation you gave 3 years ago, and I really was curious about your perspective on this. What do you think? And I'm like, bro, come to my office. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Like, I'll give you an hour of my time because I love talking about this stuff. Like, let's go. Like, to John's point, I like talking about my experiences and share wisdom. But it's one of those where, like, there's almost like the only fear behind that is your own. It's social anxiety. Like, if you can get past that that initial thought of, I don't know how to talk to a stranger, just focus on the fact that they know something that you also want to know and ask them the question. And voila, mentor.
Well, they always tell you, what do you want to be, right? Who do you want to be? What you do is you surround yourself with those type of people. If you want to, I'm sorry, if you just want to be a millionaire, well, go find some millionaires. Go surround yourself with those people. Do whatever you need to do to be in their presence. But if you want to be into security, go find the nearest CISO. Go find the nearest security analyst or the nearest talk. There's always user groups. There's always going to be someone smart there. Go learn from them. And so I think that's the takeaway that I want to give on this one is definitely look at for self-improvement. The biggest thing you can do is, yes, you have your self-improvement for yourselves, journaling, reading, listening to audiobooks like we always like to do, but also find those mentors. There's always definitely ways to do that. And as Shannon says, go buy yourself Grumpy Monkey, it sounds like. Maybe that will get you out of the rut that you need.
And Grumpy Monkey Up All Night. And Grumpy Monkey, Are We There Yet?
And the Halloween one.
And the Halloween one. I can't remember its name, but Cameron is really about the Halloween one right now.
We got Halloween in about a month, guys. I expect to see every one of you dressed up as something.
Nope.
I don't get dressed up.
Yep.
Oh.
It's my birthday. You have to dress up, Shannon. I'll be at your house.
I'll dress up for you, Kenny.
Surprise, I'm coming to visit.
I already knew this.
You're going to be down there for Halloween? Maybe I should go down there too.
Yeah, come visit. It'll be great.
Sweet.
I think Allie's doing all the planning. I'm just going to be there, and I think it's going to be great. And maybe we could do an impromptu podcast while we're there.
Yeah, we'll have to call on Josh because Josh won't fly out for us.
We'll make Josh Zordon. It'll be great.
Only if he shaves his head.
Shannon's trying to social engineer me into shaving my head. I'm not ready for that yet. But I am ready to get into social engineering, our topic for cyber here tonight. And the big one, MGM, they got social engineered. All it took was a hacking group finding someone on LinkedIn, calling their help desk, and convincing them to give them access. Sadly, it sounds like it was done within like 10 minutes. And you can't make this thing up. I applaud MGM for saying, no, we're not paying, but they're a very big company worth a lot of money, and they're still having issues.
That's how they can afford not to pay.
I read today that it's so bad that they're not even sure they could pay their employees on Friday.
Hopefully by the time this posts, they have paid their employees. Otherwise, I got some bigger issues.
Yeah. So, Shannon, you've been reading about this a lot this week. Tell us more about what you know about this one.
So it looks like there were multiple different threat actors that were involved, and they basically came in. They were able to compromise the help desk. Once they got in through there, they encrypted the ESX environment, and they've taken down all of the slot machines, which means John and I can still go play table games because they're up and running. The thing that boggles my mind is it looks like there were 3 different threat acting groups that were involved. The way that they were able to communicate with each other, because I know they're not all in the same geolocation. And the one group they actually brought on to do the social engineering was an actual group where all of them speak English without any type of foreign dialect. And that is probably why the help desk person didn't even challenge it past what they needed to, because they didn't have a foreign accent, in my mind. And I also don't think that their help desk was properly trained. They just kind of passed it through. They trusted.
So just to add to that, the threat actors, I think, came out today saying that it was actually a group called Alf V and or Black Cat Ransom Gang. I guess that's multiple threat actors. I don't know how they coordinate in that regard, but yeah, it was definitely multiple people. I don't know if they're part of the same group or if the groups were collaborating, but interesting.
Granted, these came out at the same time, so I could be mixing part of Caesars and part of MGM together. Caesar has already paid. I think they paid $15 million to get the decryptor, and MGM is holding strong with they're not going to pay. I'm really interested to see how that goes for them. I think with the current administration, they've kind of taken it to a higher level to where you get publicly shamed kind of like in that Game of Thrones episode where they just walk behind you and say, shame, and ring the bell. I imagine, that's happening to everyone who pays for the decryptor right now. But being through a couple of these, they really have you, especially if they do it well. They delete your backups, do your ESX hosts, delete your offsite backups, or even make it to where you question the integrity or the confidentiality of your backups. What else is there for you to do? You either have to close up shop or try and merge with someone, do a rebrand, and then launch from the ground up all over again. And not a lot of organizations have that kind of cash flow to rebrand and rise like a phoenix.
Yeah, I think one of the big things about all of this is it doesn't matter how great of a job you did, Shannon. You're a wonderful security analyst. You've encrypted your network. You've gotten everything to the point where you're like, it's unhackable. Nothing's unhackable, as we all know. And then somebody comes back here and it's all for naught because your help desk screwed up. So I think that's what I want to emphasize here is just like social engineering. Like, what makes it so effective? Like, how do we keep failing as human beings, when the security should be so strong?
This actually kind of leans into a comment that I was just trying to find, and I found it. So it's a small Twitter thread that started with VX Underground and another person called EvilSec, and they said, this particular subgroup of Alfie ransomware has established a reputation for being remarkably gifted at social engineering for initial access. So that's one, they're very good at it. But then the response came down to vishing is surprisingly easy right now in terms of people just not caring in cyber right now. Employees are burnt out. Organizations are loading up work. There's a lot of alert fatigue, which is something we haven't really talked about yet here. It makes things very easy for someone to socially engineer when there's all of those things combined. I really do think that it's some of it is education and some of it is just people saying, you know what? I don't care. Do what you want.
And that's, John had shared an article with us earlier. I forget the title of it, but it was basically how you can benefit by being an asshole. And I think that ties in really well with social engineering because if you're an asshole, you tend to challenge everything that everyone is saying, do you? So if they're like, we want you to go here and click on this. No, why? I want you to let me through this door. No, fuck off. And that's kind of the way you have to work with countering social engineering. It makes you come off and it really makes you look like a jerk, but that's the only way in my head to keep safe. And you have to teach that to other people. You're going to feel like a jerk and you're going to feel like an ass when you're doing this to people, but you're doing it to keep your organization safe. You're not doing it just to be a jerk.
I do this in my own apartment building. I don't hold the door for people on the outside. And if they ask me to, I'm like, you got your key? They're like, yeah. And if they show me the key, I'll hold the door. But if they don't, you're out. Like, sorry, and it's because like the front door goes straight to the mailroom. We have a lot of things get stolen. Like, I ain't dealing with that. So it's not even just about the organization. It's like all the time. Don't hold the door for people.
Yeah, and I think context definitely matters too, because I'll generally hold the door open for people. I try to be nice, but probably not to an apartment complex. I definitely don't do it whenever I visit like school offices or anything like that to pick up my kids. Most of ours have man traps now, but the main office for our school district doesn't. So if you go up there, you have to buzz in, and you could easily let someone in, but that's one door that I'm like, no, I don't know who's inside. I don't know if there's any kids in there who potentially could be hurt. Obviously, not most people don't have malintentions, but you just never know in situations like that. And like you said, you have a mailroom that packages get stolen from all the time. I'm constantly dealing with a lot of our team that's moved and become remote, and they'll reach out and they're like, hey, can I get the tracking on that new laptop you're sending me or that new monitor? Because I have that problem where people are just taking stuff off our porch or taking it off right outside my door. It's unfortunate, but yeah, you have to realize like, hey, if this is a common issue, you got to do your part.
And those are physical things. Like you can actually see that and you can intervene with that. The thing about this is it's all virtual. Like at any point in time, that employee could have just hung up the phone, but their calls probably get monitored similar to like how ours got monitored, afraid of getting into trouble. At what point, like if he was getting monitored and he hung up, could he go back to his manager and say, sorry, I hung up on that person, but I feel like they were trying to social engineer me? And have they even taught them about social engineering and what social social engineering is.
We've all worked call centers, and I think you hit it right on the nail. Is there's quality control and there's a score, and these scores go, are very important for your employment, for future raises. Having an angered customer never helps, at least as far as you as the employee trying to advance yourself. So yeah, at some point you have to be like, what's more important here? Do I let this person have this access, or do I let this escalate? And maybe that's a situation where that's the training. It's like, well, if you're not sure, escalate to your manager, let them handle it.
I think social engineering is really underplayed in the cybersecurity world because it's such a simple topic, but it's such an important one that a lot of people, when you bring it up, their eyes glaze over.
Well, and to John's question earlier, he was asking, like, why is this so effective? I was talking mostly about from the employee side being the vulnerability, but let's talk about the talent. Like, what does it take to be a good social engineer? And I know, like, in previous episodes, I've said, like, social engineering is kind of my jam. Like, it takes charisma, to be fair, but there's a few different ways to go about it, right? You could talk charm, persuasion, intimidation. I don't go the intimidation route, right? So when it's me, and I'll be honest, like, when I'm doing this, it's not malicious. I'm doing it to teach. But what I do is I always start with, building trust. Building trust is one of my strengths. It's one of those where you listen. You actively listen, you engage with the person, and and improv. I think improv skills are really important. And so it's very easy for me from those regards of just like, hey, I'm here to work on the Wi-Fi. Tell me what's going on. And they're like, oh yeah, the Wi-Fi here sucks. It's been like blah, blah, blah. This person complained about this. I'm like, okay, yeah, tell me more. And I'll just have like a tablet in my hand and I'll pretend to take notes. And I'll have a spectrum analyzer open so that they think that it's official. And I'll be like, yeah, just let me in the back. I'm going to take a look at this, simple. And there are other times where I'll walk up to someone and say, hey, I got to fix something. Will you write your password down for me? Doesn't take much time. It happens really easily. And there's a lot of times where I'll do that and succeed. There's a lot of times where my own students will do that. And I'm like, hey, don't do that. They're like, why is that bad? I need to test it for this person. Like, no, they need to be here. There's a lot of those situations where social engineering really isn't that hard. And it is kind of an education thing. But sometimes, too, it is also like a skill of the person where suddenly, like, you think that they're there to help you. You think that they're harmless. They look very official if they do it right. How are you supposed to confirm that as a tier 1 minimum wage employee, so to speak, right? It's difficult. And unless you are an organization that's very good at communication and training, which I don't know how many organizations you all have worked at, but I've never found one that's been good at that. Yeah, what are you supposed to do?
Get free brownies.
Yeah, brownies.
That's how John gets in. Brownie?
No, we already knew that. Shannon already told that story. That's how he gets his social engineering on.
That's how I test it.
Right? Years and years ago, 2006 now, wow. When I was working at CSU, I was working at the help desk. I actually got a phone call once, and it was an interesting story because they said, hey, we unlocked the computer lab and there's no computers. Are you guys replacing them? Long story short, we started going through all the cameras. Some guy showed up with a dolly with a nice suit on and everything, like a polo, looked like a computer guy, walked into the room, took all the computers and just walked off the site, passed everybody along the way, almost like they were official. And they got away with it. And in the long run, we didn't even know who they were because by the time we actually figured out the vehicle had no plates on it, nothing like that. The guy just showed up, grabbed the computers, walked off the site, and nobody stopped him. And so, I mean, that's another way of almost social engineering, if you ask me.
Yeah, I've heard of stories of fake Microsoft badges. Like, I'm here from Microsoft and I have to go work on the server upstairs. So like, okay, here you go.
It's confidence, really, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I
think acting and improv are huge. Having some kind of confidence and ability to do that. Also, the ability to kind of read someone's face and read reactions, to be able to tell if someone's buying it or not, and then be able to shift from there. And that's where that improv skill comes in. I know I read a pretty good book back in the day called Social Engineering, The Art of Human Hacking. I think it's from like Christopher Hedige or something like that. And it was back in my day when I was like, I'm going to be a hacker. I'm going to be a ethical hacker. I want to do this. This sounds like fun. I eventually was like, nah, I'm not doing that. My mind goes more towards big picture stuff, not necessarily about attacking people. I like the defense side a little bit more. But it was interesting to see kind of the tactics that he speaks about and kind of being able to read facial reactions to say, all right, is this person buying it? Are they sad? To maybe use like, hey, how are you doing? Are you having a rough day? And then just building that trust based off how they're reacting to your simple questions.
So we know how social engineering can happen. We know kind of it can be effective. Is there anything that you would like recommend that for other people out there trying to improve awareness, not just training with the organization? What about rewarding? Is there any way that you can have like special types of rewards to ensure that your business itself can reward the behaviors of protecting the business?
I think rewarding is an interesting conversation. I'm not going to say I know a good idea here, but I'm going to ask another question as a counter. It's, if you're going to reward the behavior, you have to be able to detect the behavior, right? So what's that detection layer?
So you'd have to create some kind of phishing exam, but for excuse my brain, it's getting late. I don't know.
Campaign.
Do we hire actors? Local actors from the local theater, maybe some high school kids that are looking to get into acting, and say, hey, you want a quick internship? We'll train you up on some technology information, some terminology, and then we want you to just go around campus, in Kenny's case, and see where you can get, and take notes and let us know.
Honestly, I think you guys are taking it too far. I'm just
Too
saying
far?
something just like what Shannon was saying from the previous episode, that he almost created work for himself, right? People are now going to him, is this a legitimate email? Do you reward that behavior? I mean, that's as far as I'm thinking. I don't think you even need to create a problem to reward the behavior. Of just saying, hey, if somebody sees something a little fishy, or you notice somebody did not allow somebody to tailgate in, is there a way that you can build programs to help the campus be more safe? Whether or not it's even like, hey, Kenny, you saw Shannon tell that person to like badge in because he's not just going to let him in, then you can say, hey, how do we reward that behavior? Even though you're not a manager, maybe you're just another employee on site. I think that's something that we just don't do enough, and that's why I keep trying to bring this up. Is everyone's talking about training, awareness, and I'm like, well, what happens when they do a good job? Are you giving them anything?
I think that's great. I think there probably needs to be more, but I'll say, at least from my end, like my experience of this, and the reason why I'm kind of fumbling through that question is because I've never really thought about it before. So it's a really good question, but it's one where like I can say we've kind of tweaked things. Like I'm in the same boat as Shannon, where I get a lot of people asking me like, hey, I don't know if this is legit. Can you review it for me? And I'll review it really fast and give them a quick answer. But the very first thing that I do whenever I get one of those is, thank you for bringing this to me. This is really important to me. I'm really glad that you did that. Here's the result. Yes, this is phishing. Please forward the original to here so we can, purge it from inboxes. Or no, this one's legit. Here's what I think. And sometimes, like with my people, I think they appreciate just the validation. Like it doesn't even take a lot. Like I'm not even saying that we need to be like giving people like $5 every time they report a good phishing attack. Like it's literally just like validate that they did a good thing and make them feel good about that. Sometimes just saying thank you is enough.
You guys are nicer to me.
That's what I've done. I mean, I get those emails and I'll respond to them and I'll let them know, yes, it's a phishing email, and thank them for reporting it. I've even at times, because people don't really know me, IT people don't tend to leave their cave and walk around and get to know people unless they're in the management side of it. But I'll leave my office and I'll walk around the facility and I'll just take off my badge and I'll try and tailgate people and I'll keep names of people who stop me, and I'll challenge security. I'll just walk through the main doors and they're supposed to stop, potential patients and get them to register, things like that. If they challenge me in any type of way, I'll get their names and then I'll talk to their higher up and let them know that they did a good thing and to incentivize thusly or however they want to. It's probably just like get a drink or something, or just say, hey, good job, you caught the Shannon. But
good job, you caught the Shannon. I love that.
My boss calls this giving out your attaboys, is what he says. And I shouldn't even call him my boss. He doesn't boss me around. He's a very good mentor, and I think I manage him more than he manages me. But there's a lot of lessons that I hear that are just like little itty bitty tidbits of wisdom. And we were talking about mentors earlier. He's been a fantastic one for me. And there was one that we really talked about during COVID a lot, because morale was really low during that time. And I think it's true across most organizations. It was really low during that time. And one of the things that he said was, you got to give your attaboys. You got to tell people they did good. He's like, even if it's not a big deal, or even if they kind of like have been fumbling lately and they finally did something right, it doesn't matter. Just tell them thank you. Tell them they did a good job. And usually that's enough. Like a lot of people really like that. Like, and then he started doing it to me, and I'm like, God, this feels nice. And all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, I guess I'll do that more.
I'm kind of sad. I don't think I've ever gotten an attaboy.
You
I don't
need
think
better bosses.
I don't think I ever really wanted one. I'm like, nope, that's my job. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, I'm
I
kind
just
of in the same.
I keep chugging along.
I'm in the same boat as Josh. If I did get one, I don't know that I would recognize it as one. I would just be like, yeah, that's my
Same.
job. That's what I'm here doing. That's
Same.
Oh my, whole bunch
Who
of
hurt you? Who hurt you?
Don't hurt me.
No,
Maybe
I have
Shannon,
to say too. I struggled with it at first as well. It's one of those where I just don't receive compliments well, and I think honestly, like this might just be like being a guy in America. Like guys don't really get compliments often. It's pretty uncommon, and so whenever you do get one, you don't really quite know how to take it. And I definitely know, like as a younger adult, I really struggled with it, and I tend to just shrug them off and ignore them. But the older I get, the more I pay attention to them because I realize it really helps with. Good Lord, Shannon. I find that it really helps with the mental health, especially like when you really sometimes need to take a moment, take a step back, and recognize, no, I have some successes and I should celebrate. I mean, one of those things that I had for a long time, like I have over 17 certifications and a degree, and I just shoved them all in a desk for well over 10 years. And I think it was like 2 years ago, I finally took them out, framed them, and hung them up. And all of a sudden, I looked at it and I was like, dang, I guess I have done a lot. And then one of my students came in, one of my employees came in, sat down and just looked at the wall. And he's like, damn. And I'm like, what? He's like, this is why I'm here. And then I started realizing it wasn't just about me. Like, yes, it's good to celebrate my successes and be proud. But more honestly, like, to me, the more important part of that wall is how it inspires the people that work with me. Because now they're like, I'm in the right place. I'm learning from the right person. I never thought about that until I saw it happen. And so it's one of those where, like, yeah, you kind of have to take a moment and reflect on that. And you have to take those compliments. It's not always about you.
It's funny how we call Shannon the old man, but Kenny talks more like an old man.
Oh no, I got some warm and fuzzies on that one. That was great.
That's why I'm
enjoyed
like, what's going on here? Mine are still in the garage, probably under a pile of crap.
Well, I think that's the thing is, like, if you look at it, it's like, who hurt us, man? No, I'm just kidding. Like, we really need to embrace that ourselves and as well with everyone around us. And I think that's what I was trying to get at with like social engineering is everyone talks about, okay, let's learn about it, let's train about it. It's like, okay, great, I know about it. Who's going to reward me for good behavior, right? And I'm sorry to say, we're humans. We still need that. We need the satisfaction of someone saying, great job. I actually started going around and I do a program now at Dish where if somebody turned you in and said gave you an attaboy, basically, once a month we go around and we give those attaboys swag. We'll give them a Dish swag. Here's a coffee cup. Here's a shirt. What do you want? Kind of idea. Basically saying thank you. We've seen a huge turnaround in a lot of things, including a lot less HR visits, actually, with some of the lower paid employees. And I think if you do that more with everybody, I don't care if they're the site manager, the site director. I think everybody needs to hear that they're doing a great job, because too often do we all get told that we need to have somewhere that we need to improve upon. We're never told how great we're doing, especially in the world of IT. Josh, you said that on a previous episode, like this is a thankless job. If we're doing a great job, nobody says a damn thing. But the moment things break, they're on our ass. That's just the way it is. And so I think having a reward system for our employees, for our colleagues, for our bosses, manage up, go for it. And I think that's something that we all need to keep in mind, including in the cybersecurity realm. Shannon, nobody knows your name. I don't know if that's a good thing. I think everybody on site should know Shannon. That's the security guy. Maybe you should be going around and giving out rewards and treats or whatever. Go buy
They
a box
know
of
my
candy.
name. They just don't know the sexiness that I got going on here. They know the voice, they know the name, they just don't put it all together when I'm in my physical form. You bitch-ass cat, stop it. She's over here pawing on my arm because she wants more love. She already molested the dang ball on my desk. Here's all the people. Say hi to the people. Again.
Hello, Kia. Again.
Pets are too needy for me.
Fuck you too, cat. Jesus.
You got anything to close off the topic there, Josh?
No.
Let's
I
wrap it
really
up.
don't, unfortunately. I'm not one to I give thank yous. And I'm not one to care for thank yous. Maybe I have been hurt. Who knows?
I think so.
But by who?
That's
Your
okay.
wife.
I'll heal
I've
you.
met her.
It's fine. You've
May-
been hurt by society.
I've been maybe there's a point there because I was underestimated a lot as a kid, so maybe that's the whole thing. It's like
Are you the-
another notch. Let's keep going.
Are you the mentally challenged person? Can you write a book?
I've thought about it. I honestly have. I had like a
I'd
chapter
read
in,
it.
and then I was like, too much time.
It'd probably be like the what was it called? The Grumpy Monkey book.
Grumpy Monkey.
Should've made it a
Grumpy
child's
Monkey
book.
Up All Night.
Yeah,
Would have been a lot
I'll
faster.
I'll read that, Josh. I'll
You
do
can always
that.
turn it into an adult book. They sell better.
Grumpy
But
Josh,
no,
the partially haired man.
I actually I started making it a point to say thank you to everyone for everything they do when they work on my team. And funny enough, it's from someone that like my first employer. He may not have been the best boss and he might have been kind of crazy, but he made it a point every single day when I left that shop. He would always come to the back door where everybody left for the day after we closed up, and he would shake everyone's hand and say thank you every single time. And at the time I was like, whatever, dude, you're welcome. Sure. I would just go home. And I never thought anything of it. But now that I'm here as an adult and I have other people who work with me, every single thing they do, even if it's their job, it's thank you. You did good.
See,
And that's it.
my first boss was the one that we all had at InnoTrack. And that could be why I'm more damaged than the rest of you.
Shannon, you had more bosses than that before then.
Yeah, I didn't have a good experience there either. It's all right, Shannon.
I did the first meaningful one. I'll put it that way.
That's fair.
The
I was like,
first one
because
in
the
this
boss
career
that I
field.
just told a story about is how I first met you.
He wasn't my boss, though.
He kind of was for a short period of time. You worked there
I
for like
went
a
there
month.
for a week, and he was like, "You can work for me," and then I never got paid, so I never went back.
I actually didn't know that. Well, I think that wraps up another episode of Life in Cyber. Thanks to all our listeners for tuning in. Remember, if you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe and share with your tech friends. Don't forget to drop your questions and thoughts at podcast@lifeincyber.com. Until next time, stay curious, stay secure. Don't let them social engineer you. And find that equilibrium. I can't. How do you say that word? You know what? I'm skipping it. This is Life in Cyber signing off.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.